What happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object? You get a ridiculously difficult red band, and you have no idea what to do next. That's the answer to that one. So, what am I even doing? This is a brand new client to me, and she is the sister of one of my longest clients ever. And our appointment today was supposed to be highlights, but we figured out that she had this really big black chunk in the front and on the very top. And that's because she does a level 5 root touch up on her own at home. And she does it in the front and in the top most of the time. And every second time, she'll do it everywhere for all of her roots. And once a year, she'll go to the salon for maintenance. But her main issue today was that she wanted her all over color to be lighter, and her natural color with her grays is more at a level 7. So the color she's putting on her roots is all over entirely too dark, but it's also not even holding in the rest of her hair, and it's leaving a very, very red and orange layer in her hair. And so we have patches of almost black, we have very dark brown, we have exposed roots, we have red and orange and yellow, and she wants to see her hair at a level 7 with level 9 highlights. So we need to totally rehaul her entire head of hair today and reset her canvas. We had a really long talk, about a 30-minute conversation about everything that this appointment would entail and what she could expect from it. So, our first step to reset her canvas is to use a bond enforcing color remover to remove her 3-day-old fresh roots that she applied at home. And this is the Schwarzkopf Bond Enforcing Color Remover with 20 volume. And I have mixed it according to instructions. And I am first putting it on her roots where we have the darkest color and the most recent application. And then I will be spreading it kind of down more into the brown and red areas into her hair. But I want to see it on these darkest areas first with its thickest saturation. And this is all over so that we can pull out the color and lift the hair. And especially in these really dark black areas where her baby hairs tend to suck up a lot of that color and not release it because they are smaller, thinner, finer hairs, and they tend to be more absorbent with colors like this. Versus her gray hairs are pretty resistant, and they're kind of more spread all over the rest of her hair, and they can spit out some of this level 5 color. And she was really confused as to why she has a lot of red in her hair when she puts an ash color in her hair. And we kind of talked through why that could be the case. And she's like, overall, she doesn't want to have like red and orange hair. So that's another one of the complications we'll be working around today, is trying to even out her tone as well as neutralize these extremely difficult red and orange tones. And she uses, sometimes she goes to Sally's hair and she uses, I think, either their Ion or their Wella for her root touch-ups. But the main problem that we have today is this giant hard red band in her hair from the last few months that she's been doing her roots. Because she does her roots every 2 weeks, she does them very routinely. And I think she switched up her color and she went either from Ion to Wella or Wella to Ion, because this red band that we end up getting in her hair is so incredibly difficult. And I don't know which color line it is, but whatever line it is has such intensely red pigments. So if you've ever worked with one of these before, please let me know in the comments below which one you think it could be. I think it might be the Wella, but I'm not 100% sure here. In these darker, deeper areas too, I'm applying the color remover with more saturation, and I am brushing through with less saturation in any of the more, orangey brown areas, because again, the more saturation you get, the more intense of a lift you're going to get with this color remover. And starting in the darkest areas and moving it down towards the ends is how we're going to be doing this in a way that brings the color up a level, and then once it matches the level of the thing it's next to, that's when we put the next thing on. So now we're using our lightener. And today we're using Schwarzkopf Blonde Me and 20 volume. And this is being put everywhere on the hair. Now that the roots have lifted for a little bit, they are looking really red and orange, and it's time for me to layer on top of the color remover the lightener. And I did this in another video recently, and it seemed to work out really well. So I'm doing that again today. It saves a lot of time, and it's, in my opinion, it's a good method to use. So I am combing through the product and using my fingers to evenly distribute all of this lightener through all of her hair. And then I'm incubating her using the Framewear back bib, keeping her all warm and damp. And this is what it looks like while it's processing. It looks really promising, but I promise you it looks so scary in the sink because this is what we had after we rinsed her out. This is when I have to warn my clients about what they're going to see when they sit down in the chair before we do our next step. This is quite literally jump scare hair. We have platinum roots, we have a harsh red band for a few inches right after that, and then we have oranges and yellows. Now, the oranges and yellows and the platinum roots are not a problem for me. I know exactly what I want to do with them, but this harsh red root from whatever formula she had used previously is not budging no matter what we do. We have done a color remover and then bleach on top of it, and it's still not moving. And it's like a level and a half away from what we need it to be, because this is like a level 6.5 red, and we want a level 8 gold so that we can deposit down a level 7 natural on top of that onto her roots and give her a very rooty, soft color that will blend in with her natural color and her grays better in the future. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with this platinum root, and I'm going to be using Schwarzkopf Agora Royale, and I am using 7-00, which is a natural, and 7-4, which is a cool beige. And the beige in Schwarzkopf has a balance of gold and purple in it. And I'm using those equal parts with 10 volume developer, and that's just going to go on anything that is light enough to be covered by a level 7. So it's on the platinum roots and anything that is like a yellow or a slight gold color, and I'm stopping where it gets to more of that red zone. Then what I'm doing next is I am doing a mixture of highlights and lowlights, and I decided to do the highlights today with a high lift color instead of doing bleach. So what this is doing is it's just going to bump up that red and fight the red using some ash tones and some green tones, and then I can tone her in the sink when I see what it's lifted up to. So I'm doing a money piece and some big slices in her hair because we have low contrast between the two desired colors at a level 7 and a level 8 or 9. And so our high lift is 37 grams of 12-2 and 1 gram of L33, which is a lifting forest green color. And I've mixed that with 30 volume developer in the Royal developer, and that is mixed 2 parts to developer to 1 part color. So that 12-2 is a high lift color, and the L33 is just a green high lift kicker. And I've only used 1 gram because that stuff is powerful as heck, and I don't want to risk turning her hair actually green, especially if I overlap any of those gold or yellow areas. I only want it to be on the red areas and for it to just simultaneously lift and correct in these areas that I want to be considered my highlights. And that's what's difficult about this, is because it's all guesstimation work. It's not exact for this client. I've never done her hair before, and we have no idea how her hair wants to take to color, if it wants to hold it or drop it all. So this is something that I would consider is actually a little bit risky because we don't know how much green her hair is going to absorb or if it's going to reject it all entirely. But I would rather be on the safe side and use just 1 gram of it for a tiny bit of corrective than to overdo it and use 5 grams and let's say her hair looks just so swampy and gross. Like if her hair turns the color of my shirt, I have made a huge mistake. So then I'm taking a mohawk section here, and with this high lift color, I am sectioning out big slices or weaves along this mohawk section, and I'm going from very few weaves to a lot of weaves from the back to the front. So I have a little bit of a gradient of darker at the apex of her head towards lighter where her money piece is. So I'm getting progressively more and more light pieces in her hair as I'm getting closer towards the front. I also decided to do a high lift color because I only need it to lift a level and a half, and I need it to also deposit ash tones in there at the same time. If I did lightning with bleach, we are risking snapping her hair off at that length, and we're also not really correcting those colors, we're just lifting through them. But this is more staining than it is anything else. So the hair has been lifted, and it's been lifted with a lot of product for a good amount of time. I feel like this is really quite as light as it's getting, and so I'm just trying to push it a little bit, tiny bit more with something that's a lower risk by using a high lift and a tint. Now we're using a Frankenstein mix for our low lights, and this is the leftover high lift in the bowl mixed with 7-00 and 10 volume. And that is so that I can still have a little extra push and lift in this kind of orangey red area that's left over, but I've also mixed in a 7-0 and 10 volume to bring down the power of that lift, because that high lift has a 30 volume in it. If I put 10 volume in there, it kind of brings it more down towards a 20, where we still want some additional lift in here. And that 7 volume, not 7 volume, that 7-00 puts in a bit of a natural base in there to control the color. So we're not only lifting here and correcting, we are now also depositing a brown in there. So this is a bit of a Frankenstein mix because it's kind of all over the place, and it's a few bowls mixed together in one, and we have so many colors in her hair. And then what I do next is I mix up the blonde formula, and I put that where everything else is. All of the yellow and very light gold colors are going to be toned with this Schwarzkopf Igora Royale 9-24, which is an ash beige, and a 9-00 with a 10 volume developer, which is just deposit only. As you can see, I'm working it through the hair from like where I see my previous color is sitting and down in towards the ends. And because we're going such low contrast, we only have 2 levels of difference between our dark color and our light color. I don't mind mixing them in together and creating an ombre effect in the hair. I'd rather have too much saturation and have too much blend and too much of one color than to miss any spots. So I'm putting it everywhere, and once the hair has sat with these foils in, they've already absorbed quite a bit of color. So I'm just using this as a blender between everything. After it all processes for about 35 minutes, I will wash her out, and my camera ran out of battery, so I had to put it on the charger. But then what I did next was in the sink, I just glazed over everything with 7-4 and 6 volume. And what that does is it adds a little bit more control to any of those slightly reddish zones up in the roots, and it does some balancing and it cools down any orange, but it's not so strong that it's going to overwhelm our blonde and darken our blonde too much. So the 7-4 is a balancer that goes everywhere, and I've got to say it's one of my 2 stars of the day because I am really happy with this result. This is what she looked like in the end here. We had such a beautiful natural tone on her. This matches perfectly to her root color, and I'm going to be giving her the formula as well so she can maintain it at home in between services. And this is a great new canvas for us to do future highlights on. So what I'm really happy with today was my formulations and my overall glaze that I did at the end to balance everything. And what I would work on for the next time, maybe I would switch up that L-33 1 gram for maybe I would do 2 grams next time. But overall, I was so happy with this result. What do you guys think of this final result? If you liked it, please remember to like and leave a hype vote for me. Hype votes mean so much for small channels like mine. So if you enjoyed this video or you learned anything from it, please remember to comment, like, hype, and don't forget to subscribe. And I will see you guys on the next one. Have a great afternoon, evening, or weekend, whatever you're doing. Stay safe out there.